Alexa, is my package still due to come in today?
Package scheduled to be delivered by 12 p.m. today.
Thank you. Edith, send drones over to track the package that I recently bought from Amazon.
Affirmative. Truck is en route and 3.2 minutes away from delivery.
Thank you. Alexa, set the alarm for the house.
House security system armed.
Edith, order drones to set a perimeter around the house. Make sure that security is on point.
Affirmative, sir. 10 drones armed and surrounding the perimeter.
Alexa, order 100 Alexas and send it over to this idiot's home address.
Confirmed. Your order has been received.
Edith, send in all the drones and obliterate the Amazon facility.
Confirmed. Operation Bye Bye Alexa initiated.
Bafflation.
How's it going, everyone? It's Eugene, and welcome back again to another episode of Eugene Reviews here on YouTube. And today we finally close out my video journal of Eugene reviews for the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. We've gone through 22 previous films, and now finally we've reached the 23rd film, which is the final part of the Infinity Saga, and it is the sequel to the smash box office hit from 2017, Spider-Man Homecoming, and it's called Spider-Man Far From Home. That's a mouthful. So as far as my viewings for Spider-Man Far From Home, I did see it in theaters, once again with friends and then by myself in IMAX. Don't ask why I do that, I just do that. But yeah, this would be the recent MCU film that I've seen, and like the rest of the world, we were eager to get ready and chug along with Phase 4, but 2020 had different plans. But now I feel like we're back on track, especially now that Black Widow is still slated to hit theaters on July 9th. And I hope, and this should be the case, that all the MCU films previously I've gotten up to speed with. So now we can go ahead and finally knock off the final film, Spider-Man Far From Home. So let's go through the 3 acts, the development, execution, and response for Spider-Man Far From Home. So with the success of 2017's Homecoming, obviously Amy Pascal from Sony and Kevin Feige from Marvel Studios decided they can be able to formulate some kind of cohesive unit in order to execute for the sequel for that smash box office hit. And once again, this would mark the 2nd film in the recent kind of revamping of Spider-Man for Sony, but it would mark the 23rd film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which would also wrap up Phase 3 and what would be known as the Infinity Saga, which was phases 1, 2, and 3, dating all the way back to 2008. A couple things to note, so everyone virtually came back for this edition of Spider-Man. Tom Holland, Zendaya, Marissa Tomei, Jon Favreau, Jacob Batalon, and various other actors who played the friends and high school students from Homecoming. Now in Homecoming, they were able to get Tony Stark, aka Robert Downey Jr. In this edition, they were able to get another MCU familiar face, and that's Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury and Kobe Smulders' Maria Hill. And the big new acquisition that they got in this film will be none other than world-renowned actor Jake Gyllenhaal playing Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio. Now for people who follow the comics, everyone knows Mysterio is one of the more popular villains in the canon of Spider-Man comic books. But the way the marketing played out it felt like this was not really the case. It almost felt like they were allies at one point. But that didn't fool any Spider-Man fan, and let alone myself. I'm like, yeah, he's a bad guy.
See, that wasn't so hard.
One thing to note, as soon as the trailer, the preview for the first Homecoming film came out, Sony was so excited and ecstatic for the overall success of that film, they already scheduled to have the sequel, which is this, Far From Home, ready for July 2019. They insisted on that, however, Marvel would be thrown a wrench because of that, because they had already had their MCU schedule slated out with ENDGAME included, so it would be a little bit of a hiccup when it comes time for July 2019. And of course, when 2019 rolled around, we obviously know the ordeal that took place, with the snap from Infinity War wiping out half of living organisms around the universe, including Spider-Man. it was hard to really promote a film when their main character was deemed dead. So when you announce that a film is coming out but your main character is dead in the story, it's really hard to kind of convince fans to bring in their money to buy a ticket for someone that's dead. I mean, the whole marketing scheme was a little bit awry. But fortunately, fans are smart enough to know, yeah, Spider-Man's gonna come back, he's a big character. But it was a little bit of a challenge for the marketing, being that this came out right after Endgame. So you had to really explain everything that happened after Endgame with Spider-Man Far From Home. So that presents plenty of hurdles, obstacles, challenges, not only for the MCU, but for Sony as well. Being that Mysterio is a famous villain that depicts a bunch of illusions, the filmmakers thought this would be a great idea to utilize the aspect of fake news. As you would see throughout the film, how that kind of came into play. It was a nice little ploy and nice little twist to the character of Mysterio from the comic books to film. And I think that would present something that's very, very interesting to the table, and hopefully something that the fans would accept. Main cast all coming back. They added Jake Gyllenhaal as well as Samuel L. Jackson and Kobe Smulders. The marketing hurdle that came up and came about after announcing a sequel for the film after the events of certain films that needed to be explained before then. All right, so those are your notes for developments. Obviously, there's more that could have been thoroughly kind of delve into, but those are the major ones that I think were kind of important to bring up. Now let's see how the momentum could be ridden from Endgame with Spider-Man Far From Home. What was interesting about Homecoming and the way that Jon Watts directed Homecoming was that it had the feel of a John Hughes film, a high school coming of age, coming about type of film that happens to be a superhero film. It was great for Homecoming, and I like that they also included that flair and that overall feel in Far From Home as well. It acted like a road trip film. It acted like Euro Trip in a way, as they went all throughout the continent, going through Italy, going through Germany, going through London, going through Prague, going through various different cities and landscapes all throughout that continent. So the charm is still there that made Homecoming so unique and so essential. And I'm happy that they kept that, as well as kind of heightening up the amount of chemistry and the overall effectiveness of it. This was also beneficial, in my opinion, for Sony to dictate the direction of the MCU after Endgame, being that this is the first film after that big box office smash hit back in April. So now Jon Watts and cast, Tom Holland and cast, has the opportunity to really kind of take the first steps, if you will, for post-Endgame events. For one, they called it the blip, which was pretty funny and pretty interesting. They labeled Iron Man as a hero, Tony Stark as a hero. I really do like that they kind of really accentuated Spider-Man into this role that he's really growing up. He's no longer a kid, and he's taking over the helm of Iron Man, even though he didn't really initially want to, but now he knows that he has to. We were first introduced to Zendaya's character Michelle in Homecoming, and it was twistingly revealed at the end of that movie that her nickname is actually MJ, which is another play on another character in the canon of Spider-Man. So now you know Peter is with MJ, and I'm liking that also that they developed this quirky yet effective chemistry and relationship. I think personally it works. I think they bounced off one another very, very well. It's a nice, young, youthful, innocent, charming type of love, if you can say that, and just overall bonding. Jake Gyllenhaal being Jake Gyllenhaal, I mean, if you look at his impressive resume of work, you know how much of a star-studded, bona fide performer he is. And him as Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio in Far From Home, is nothing different. He was impressive. He commandeered the screen when he had the time. The twist, obviously, it came, you know, very, very expectedly, but still was effective. Overall, I did like how Jake Gyllenhaal made this performance his, and it was very, very interesting. You were kind of tagged along and you were intrigued by his overall body language and his means to what he needed to accomplish. And that's why I think the best villains are the ones that are sympathetic and feel like that they're the hero of their own story. So everything, I mean, action was great, the comedy was great, the humor, the overall charm, the relationship, the awkward romance, if you will, was effective. And then of course, we get to the post-credit scene. Shockingly, I was surprised too, we see on that big billboard screen in New York, we see J. Jonah Jameson played by J.K. Simmons. the original J. Jonah Jameson in the live-action Spider-Man movies. J.K. Simmons there playing J. Jonah Jameson and revealing the shocking tape that has Quentin Beck, before he died, saying that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And now it just takes a shift in like a holy shit kind of way. Now it makes everybody want to see Spider-Man 3. It makes everybody look forward to Phase 4. And it really sets the bar. Just when you thought Endgame set it so high, I think that this twist, this moment, is able to put it up just as high, maybe a little lower than Endgame, but just as well as Endgame did. That was a great way to kind of leave us on our toes, thinking and speculating and coming up with our theories. So they did an impressive job on that, and that topped off a really great story in the film and another great addition to the MCU. Once again, maintaining the innocence, the charm, the fun from the first film that made it so successful. Jake Gyllenhaal really kind of shining and commandeering his role as Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio. Tom Holland also being effective as well, but also the chemistry and relationship with MJ, played by Zendaya. The advantages of having to establish the first path and footsteps for the MCU post-Endgame. Very effective. And finally, that big twist at the end that left us wondering and speculating and theorizing what's going to happen in Spider-Man 3 as well as the MCU moving forward for Phase 4. So a lot on the table for us to dissect, from story, characters, to everything else moving forward. Now let's see how the fans and the critics and the overall general population responded to Spider-Man Far From Home. Spider-Man Far From Home really took advantage of the overall impact that Endgame left behind a few months back. Because of that, Spider-Man Far From Home was able to produce $1.13 billion in the box office overall. Now, to put that in perspective, that's the ninth MCU film in their whole resume and whole catalog that reached over $1 billion. Avengers, Iron Man 3, Avengers Age of Ultron, Captain America Civil War, Black Panther Infinity War, Captain Marvel, Endgame, and now Spider-Man Far From Home. And an even more jaw-dropping fact was the fact that this is the first billion-dollar Spider-Man film ever. So none of the previous Spider-Man films, Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, the Raimi Spider-Man films, the Amazing Spider-Man films with Andrew Garfield, not one of them were even able to touch $1 billion. Far From Home was the first one. Once again, it opens up so many possibilities. They even laid Easter eggs about multiverses in the trailer. That right there just speaks volumes of really kind of the teasing that these studios give us, but also the thoroughly planned out, laid out, structured journey that they're planning to lead us for with Phase 4 and beyond. Not technically, Endgame felt like the conclusion for Phase 3, but really technically, this film, Far From Home, is the final film in the Phase 3 slot and the final film to close out the entire Infinity Saga. So now fans are left to wonder what's going to happen in Phase 4 moving forward. What other new characters are we going to see? Are we going to see some characters that we know about? Are we going to see some new characters we've never seen before? It's really now closing one door, opening another big open door, and a whirlwind of possibilities in the foreseeable future. Fans love this film, obviously. You could see from the Rotten Tomato ratings, from the critic ratings. This film has commandeered, really, even with Endgame coming out in the same year, Far From Home really does establish itself well and opens up the doors for many, many possibilities and many opportunities, not only for the MCU, but also for Sony's little world of Spider-Man. I mean, even before or around this time, we were seeing Venom, we're seeing Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, we're scheduled to see a Morbius film of obviously Spider-Man 3. They've talked about Scarlet Spider, they've talked about various other things within the world of Spider-Man. Now that they see the success from this Spider-Man film, albeit from the help of the MCU, it triggers dollar signs and it triggers opportunities for Sony to say, let's make more Spider-Man films because this is a money grabber. So $1.13 billion, the 9th MCU film to reach $1 billion, the first Spider-Man film ever to reach $1 billion, the signaling end for Phase 3 and opening up opportunities and really speculating the possibilities of what could happen in the MCU in Phase 4, as well as Sony moving forward. All right, so we've gone through the development, the execution, the response of Spider-Man Far From Home. Let's go ahead and hit my overall verdict for this sequel. It's really hard to get me to put something on the same level as Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. I will admit, Spider-Man Far From Home comes pretty damn close. I think that the charm and the overall feel and essence of a coming-of-age film, still being in the high school realm of things, being a road trip film also in a ways, I think that's what makes it so meaningful, it makes it so effective, and it makes it so memorable, not only for regular moviegoers, but for MCU fans, comic book fans, Spider-Man fans alike. You know, the entire cast does an amazing job, from Tom Holland all the way down to the high school students. The addition of Jake Gyllenhaal, Samuel L. Jackson, and Kobe Smulders were essential, they were key, and I think that they were effective in the long run. I think that this film, while it doesn't feel like it should have been the conclusion for it, I think it was necessary to make it the conclusion for Phase 3 and for the overall Infinity Saga, because it leaves a little bit of spacing and a little bit of a push for us to speculate and theorize for the next year, or in this case few years, of what can happen in Phase 4, because we're left with that big cliffhanger at the end revealing Spider-Man's identity. So it's enough to let us know, okay, what can we expect for Spider-Man 3? What's gonna happen in Phase 4? Are we gonna see new characters in here? Or like, what's gonna happen? Interesting to note that Sony and Marvel Studios temporarily halted their relationship. They disavowed their relationship completely after Far From Home. But it was eventually reconciled with a little bit of help from Tom Holland. I didn't think it was a little bit of a story to bring up, but it's brought up nonetheless. But I mean, what can I say? I liked the film. I think it was really charming, and I think it really does kind of one-up Homecoming in a way. So for that to do that, for it to lead us into a few steps into like a little bit of a tease and sneak peek into Phase 4, and for it establishing character arcs and showing us these new villains and new characters of how effective they can be for not only an MCU film, but for a Sony Spider-Man film, kudos to them. And I will go ahead and give Spider-Man Far From Home an 8.6 out of 10. All right, 23 MCU films, all of the Infinity Saga films. I don't have time to kind of explain my ranking, but I'm gonna put it up somewhere. This is my official ranking of MCU films from best to worst. You'll see it somewhere on the screen, or maybe even attached or somewhere on the descriptions on this video. It's a lot of films. It's been a whirlwind and tiring yet effective and very, very bittersweet ride, having to go through 23 films. And I'm so happy that I'm caught up, and I'm caught up just in time for Black Widow. I told myself ever since I started this channel, ever since I started doing Eugene reviews, that I'm gonna go through every single MCU film until I'm caught up, so I can make myself ready for Black Widow the day it decides to come out. And that day is imminent, July 7th, in theaters or on Disney Plus Premiere if you have that access. I cannot wait for that. I cannot wait to see what the future has for the MCU, for Phase 4 beginning for us with this Scarlett Johansson-led origin story. So thank you guys again for tuning in. Thank you guys for going through this journey with me for 23 films of the MCU, of the Infinity Saga. Thank you guys for supporting this. I want to know what you guys think of the ranking. I also want to know what you guys think of Spider-Man Far From Home. Did you guys enjoy it? Do you think it's the best Spider-Man film that they ever put out? Let me know in the comments section below. Like, share, subscribe, comment, as long as it's appropriate. I want to know anything and everything y'all want to spew out regarding the MCU, regarding Spider-Man, regarding the ranking. Let me know how excited you guys are for Phase 4 to begin with Black Widow coming July. Also, to click the bell notification for any and all updated videos, content that comes out as soon as it does on YouTube. Hopefully in the next few days, maybe in a week or so, I'm gonna release a quick video that'll be also on my Instagram as well as on my Twitter, highlighting my top 5 picks for June. So be on the lookout for that. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy watching these as much as I enjoy doing these. And I hope you guys are looking forward and are eager just as I am for Phase 4 and for Black Widow coming July. I'm really excited. I feel like now this film coming out will probably be the mark of us saying this is now back to normal. I don't think it's going to produce the most amount of money, but it's going to be a great big first step in saying we are back in the movies legitimately. And I really hope Black Widow overachieves and surpasses any and all expectations, even with COVID. So I hope everyone can get a chance to watch Black Widow. I for sure am going to the theaters. If they have the proper safety procedures and protocols, please, I suggest everyone walk into the theaters and watch Black Widow. Yeah, you can spend 30 bucks on Disney Premiere Plus, but it's 30 bucks. And also, who wants to watch it on a little phone or on a 50, 60, maybe 70-inch TV? No, you want to watch in the biggest screen possible with the loudest sound possible. So watch Black Widow the way it's supposed to be, in the theater, in the dark, with your friends, with a bunch of people that are big fans of movies, of comic book films, of superhero films, of Marvel films, and just enjoy the ride. So Disney, if you're watching, please hire me. So thank you again, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for your time. Spread the word of Eugene Reviews. Now that I'm done with the MCU films, I'm going to be looking forward to doing more regular films, not Marvel films all the time. So I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you guys again. This is Eugene signing off for another episode of Eugene Reviews. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your time. And I will see you guys again very, very soon for another brand new episode of Eugene Reviews. And that is a wrap. Whew. 23 films, man. This is crazy.